The Auditor General has found the government failed to follow proper processes in awarding funding to Mike King's Gumboot Friday charity. The mental health service that provides free counselling to youth was given a $24 million government contract based on coalition commitments. But the Auditor General says that's not justification for excluding other providers from bidding for a contract. Here's senior political correspondent Jenna Lynch.
Mike King has fought hard for his mental health charity, so frustrated with the lack of action in 2021, he marched to Parliament and handed back his Order of Merit medal.
I feel nothing about giving the medal back, but I feel just a profound sense of sadness that no one's listening.
He fought for funding for Gumboot Friday from successive governments, but wasn't always satisfied.
I want them to admit that the system is broken.
Until this one coughed up the cash.
We're investing $24 million into Gumboot Friday.
While the Ministry of Health had in the past rejected funding applications from government.
So this has got quite a bit to go, but it seems that what's being said is this is another one of these promises that was made before the election without consultation, without proper process, that they then had to carry out, be it the right or wrong decision. Have I summarised that pretty fairly, Chewy?
Yeah, it's spot on.
Right.
Absolutely spot on.
And of course, I might play it now because we did get told this before the election from CLux.
We want a government that cares about how every single dollar is spent, because every single dollar the government spends is ultimately a dollar from your pocket.
Now, not to talk necessarily about Gumboot Friday, but surely you would, if every single dollar matters, then you wouldn't make promises pre-election about what you're going to do post-election before due process, before putting things out to tender, because just saying it's going to happen blah, and then just doing it is not treating every single dollar like that. So you either are the government that wants to run the country like business and everything goes out to tender, or you aren't. What seems to be happening, and while this looks like a political stunt to me, is you choose not to be the parties of business running the country with things like this and just going, we're going to do it because you know what, Labor wouldn't, Labor bad, we good, we do. So it's a political stunt, even if it did good work in the long run. I'm not even debating that. So it's a political stunt. And then when it wants to get to things like the health system overall, they go, well, you know, businesses have to tighten their belts. We do too. Picking and choosing what's the narrative that they think is best for them or what is then desperately needed to cover off on there. Let's say it all together, people. Landlords and tax cuts. I've talked for quite a long time there, Joe. Do you want to jump in now before we hit play?
I'm not even going to touch whether Gumboot Friday is a good charity or they do good work or not. What I'm going to cover off is there is a reason that these due processes are there, and that's to avoid corruption.
Yeah.
And we look at Gumboot Friday. Don't forget that the government's evidence as to why Gumboot Friday, I Am Hope, was such a good investment was provided by an 11-page report commissioned by Impact Lab. Now, Impact Lab is a business that was set up by Bill English. It's run by his daughter. On their board of trustees, there's Todd Muller. Naomi Ballantyne, who was a previous trustee, donated to the National Party. Now, I'm just saying it's awfully convenient that Mike King was able to get in front of the media and land some big hits on Jacinda's government, like handing in your Order of Merit. That got a lot of column inches, it got a lot of time in front of the telly, and he was able to say that this government doesn't give a shit about people. You go through their financial statements on the charity register, their donations skyrocketed from $591,000 in 2018 to over $9 million in 2023.
So it's kind of the equivalent of the bakery that won't bake a cake for a gay couple and then they get forced to by the lefties in America. Then all the right wingers come out and start buying cake from that bakery just to help them out. Now it's got that kind of vibe to it.
I have huge issues with someone. Maybe it's a good charity. Maybe it's efficient with its money, but the proof that they're using to say that it is a good charity and they are effective and they are good with their money, we talk a lot about conflicts of interest, and this seems to be a conflict of interest.
All right.
How many other organizations that do similar work that weren't jumping up and down in front of the media could have used a slice of that pie.
I think this is where we're about to go in this story, is that they got promised a big chunk of money, in my opinion, as a political stunt to embarrass Labor. And because of that promise, the coffers were left bare for other charities who were doing this kind of work, and they're now no longer there. Let's keep going.
Gumboot Friday, as they had not complied with procurement processes, the promise was...
let's just go back, because this is actually why they'd been turned down from the other government. Actually nothing to do with Labor bad. Is like basically Gumboot Friday didn't do what they needed to do. Like, you apply for a home loan. There's a bunch of stuff you got to do and fulfill and get through, and then you hand it in to see whatever their list of things to do was. They didn't do it, so they didn't get approved. It's kind of as simple as that. So it seems that it was sort of on them.
$4 million into Gumboot Friday.
While the Ministry of Health had in the past rejected funding applications from Gumboot Friday as they had not complied with procurement processes, the promise was inked into the coalition deals, and so it was.
So in other words, forget Gumboot Friday. You've got a group, who wants a bunch of money, who hasn't done the right paperwork or proved themselves worthy of receiving that money, so one group says you can't have it. Then you get Jimmy Big Nuts come along and go, I'll give you the money, and then they have to give you the money even if your processes and practices aren't up to scratch. And maybe that's what they're finding out now. Again, I genuinely don't want to talk down Gumboot Friday, because it seems to me that actually National has used this for a political stunt, and this is what's backfiring on them.
Very grateful for your inputs.
But the Auditor General says the coalition commitment does not equal proper process. In a letter to the Director General of Health, he says several aspects of the funding were unusual and inconsistent with principles of transparency, accountability and value for money, saying the selection of the supplier and the amount of funding was decided without an open and transparent process. The funding was to a specific supplier rather than to a broad policy initiative, and the limited analysis was done only after the decision to provide funding to the supplier had been made.
So using my analogy, so they said, yep, we'll give you the mortgage, no problems, go buy your house. And then after they'd said yep and handed the money over, they went, could you just come back and fill out this paperwork? Because we just want to make sure that it all works still, but you've already bought your house.
The process is there for a reason, which is to make things fair and accountable and contestable, and to ensure that the public gets value for money. And so when winners are pre-picked and the decision is pre-cooked, it's really bad for outcomes, for health outcomes, and it's really bad for democracy.
The Mental Health Minister was not available for an interview, but in a statement blamed officials.
He was having a mental health day. We can say that, I'm not taking the piss. Still took a break today.
Saying, while the decision to fund Gumboot Friday was a decision made by the government, how this commitment was implemented was a decision for the Ministry of Health.
Throwing that under the bus. Fish rots from the head. The fish rots from the head when they see Luxon go, oh, that's a good question. Mark Mitchell can answer that. This is just that version of it. Yeah, it's a good question. You should speak to the Ministry of Health. This is the pattern they're doing. Maybe it is a business practice going, no, not me. The next level down from me made the decisions. But remember, in business, the boss, the owner, is always the buck stopper, is the one who's ultimately responsible. As within government, the minister for that department is. So sorry, dude, you can't just chuck it down the road.
The minister has thrown his officials under the bus rather than take responsibility for dodgy procurement that suits his political ends.
Labor says that money is desperately needed elsewhere.
What is desperately needed at the moment is funding for the groups that were locked out of the Gumboot Friday funding. We've seen organisations fall over and others that are about to.
There's no denying, no matter the provider, the need exists for more mental health support.